All right, let's get right into it. If you're a trader, you know this feeling all too well. You've got a solid strategy, you've done all your homework, but then when the pressure's on, something else just takes over. And that's because the real fight in trading, it's not you against the market. It's the battle happening inside your own mind. And this quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? A perfect plan means absolutely nothing if your own brain decides to sabotage it at the very last second. You might think your trading system tells you when to get in, but your exits? Oh, those often come straight from your emotions. So what is actually going on in there? You know, when you're staring at a chart, your heart starts pounding, and your finger is hovering over the mouse. What's really pulling the strings and making you click that button? Well, it boils down to this fundamental conflict that's literally baked into our biology. See, on one side, you've got your rational, logical brain, the newer part, called the neocortex. But on the other side, you have this ancient emotional reactor, the amygdala. And in the heat of a trade, trust me, it is not a fair fight. So let's actually break down the mechanics of this, because we're talking about a very real biological process. This isn't just some vague metaphor. It's a neurological event that can cost you some very, very real money. What's so wild is that our brains are wired for survival in the wild, not for trading stocks. So follow me here. When market info comes in, like a sudden price drop, that's step one, it hits a sort of relay station in your brain. Then, as you see in step two, that signal splits onto two tracks. The slow track goes to your rational brain for careful analysis, but there's also a super fast track that goes straight to your emotional brain, the amygdala. And if that amygdala senses danger, a tiger in the bushes, it triggers this hijack in step four before your rational brain even has a chance to catch up. And that, right there, is the emotional takeover. Okay, so let's look at how this brain hijack actually shows up as real-world trading mistakes. Because this internal battle, it doesn't just feel bad. It leads to really specific, destructive behaviors that pop up over and over again. First up is one of the most famous and well-documented biases out there, the disposition effect. To put it simply, it's that magnetic pull we all feel to cash in on our small wins really quickly, but let our losses run and run, just hoping they'll turn around. And this is that amygdala hijack in living color. Think about it. That winning trade? The fear of losing that little bit of profit triggers a flight response. You sell just to make the anxiety go away. And the losing trade? Your emotional brain can't handle the certainty of a loss, so it fuels this hope-driven freeze response. You just hold on, refusing to accept the pain, even as that small loss turns into a massive one. But believe me, the disposition effect is just the beginning. Your emotional brain has laid out dozens of these little traps for you. Confirmation bias has you cherry-picking news that agrees with your position. The sunk cost fallacy whispers in your ear, you're in too deep to get out now. And herd behavior makes you feel all warm and fuzzy following the crowd, even if that crowd is running straight off a cliff. So, how big of a deal is this, really? Is it just something that happens to a few people? Not even close. The research is crystal clear. It's a massive problem. Almost 70% of traders struggle with being consistent for one simple reason. They let these emotional reactions call the shots. It is the single biggest hurdle between knowing what you should do and actually doing it. Okay, so we're basically fighting our own biology. That sounds like bad news. But the good news is we can actually fight back. There are really two main paths you can take to build discipline and get back in control. Path one is pretty straightforward. You become the machine. You can use algorithmic trading to execute your strategy perfectly, every single time, with zero emotional interference. But for those of us who actually want to stay in the driver's seat, there's path two, becoming a master of your own mind. And this path, the path of self-mastery, it isn't about some vague positive thinking. It is about using proven, practical tools to literally rewire your brain's responses to the stress of the market. Now, the toolkit for this comes from a field called cognitive behavioral coaching, and it's all about changing your actions by first changing your thoughts. So first, you monitor your thoughts. Keep a journal to see what actually triggers you. Then you learn to restructure those thoughts. You actively challenge them. You can even run little experiments, like forcing yourself to wait 5 minutes before making an impulse trade. And finally, you can use simple mindfulness practices, like breathing exercises, to literally calm your amygdala down before you even start your day. And look at this real-world example of a trader named Ramesh. He used to think, if I sell now for a loss, I'm admitting I failed.
But through this process of cognitive restructuring, he reframed it. He started thinking, selling now is a smart choice that aligns with my plan. That one mental flip completely transformed losses from being personal failures into just being data points. He basically short-circuited the emotional hijack.
But here's where this whole thing gets really, really interesting. After everything we've just talked about, all the dangers of emotion, the ultimate goal isn't what you probably think it is. So is the real endgame to become a completely emotionless trading robot? Is that what peak performance actually looks like? Well, not according to the neuroscientists. This landmark study basically says that good, rational decisions actually depend on processing emotions accurately. This just flips the entire script. It turns out emotions aren't just the enemy. And that brings us to the most important lesson of all. The goal is not to get rid of your feelings. It's to understand what they're trying to tell you. Think of your emotions as just another data stream, like price action on a chart. You just have to learn how to read them correctly.
In fact, neurobiology shows us that those physical signals, your gut feeling, your heart racing, that's your brain's way of tracking risk. The best traders in the world don't ignore these feelings. They don't suppress them. They train them until their intuition becomes a highly sophisticated risk management tool.
And this really brings us to the final critical difference. Amateurs who are losing this battle in their minds, they keep looking for a new strategy, a new holy grail. They blame the market, their indicators, anything but themselves. Professionals, they understand that the real work isn't on the screen. It's refining their own perspective.
So I'll leave you with this one question. The next time you look back at a trade that went wrong and you just can't believe what you did, remember this. The chart was just data. It was neutral. The chart didn't change. Did you?